So, a very good morning to you, ladies and gentlemen. It was recently revealed by the Press Democrat that the Palms Inn, a Sonoma County permanent supportive housing facility in Santa Rosa, is riddled with mold and cockroaches. That's just the very tip of the iceberg of a very grievous situation that the public still doesn't know about. Recently, VA case manager Trevor Thompson expressed his concerns about a lack of security infrastructure on a property on a crime-prone stretch of Santa Rosa Avenue. Matt Jensen, another VETS case manager, says that drug dealers have been frequenting the property for some years. Residents are struggling to stay sober. In fact, what started out as a grand example of a thriving environment for the residents there has deteriorated to one of broken promises, fear, and appalling neglect. Alana Raposa has been a resident of the Palms for 8 years, and he's going to describe his troubling firsthand eyewitness experiences, not with any vindictiveness in mind, but rather for the benefit of the suffering community which he loves and is a part. Please allow me now to introduce Mr. Raposa to you. He's the most courageous man I know.
Public speaking is not high on my skill set, so I'm going to muddle through this a little bit and probably lose my way a little bit. Just ask for your patience, especially since I can't get my notes out of this thing because I'm not tech savvy.
Can't hear you very well. Speak.
Yeah.
Can you speak up a little bit, please?
So I should probably start by telling you a little bit about myself as it relates to this story. For most of my adult life, I was a consumer of correctional services, and on my last term, it was a healthy stretch, and I paroled into street-level homelessness. And I'd never been homeless before, and it didn't come with a manual, and my parole wasn't much help. So I saw the JC as a means to an end to my homelessness, so I enrolled in classes, and when I enrolled in the classes, human services classes, and I found out that the city council held meetings every Tuesday night, and there were homeless issues that they talked about. So I went to the city council meeting, and during the public comment section, the person got up and said they were a homeless advocate, and I got real excited because apparently they were there to advocate for me. Mm-hmm. And what this person said was just, it was nut shit to me. It wasn't related to anything I was going through. And well, I appreciated them speaking on behalf of the homeless. I felt that the person best qualified to speak about the issues I was going through was probably me. So I asked her to sign up for public comment, and this woman helped me fill out the form. And I spoke my piece, and afterwards this woman told me there was a job at Catholic Charities as a homeless outreach worker, and she thought I'd be great for the job, and encouraged me to apply for it. And that was Jenny Lynn Holmes. And I worked for Host for about a year. And between being in prison and working on the front lines with Host, and then moving into the Palms, the education I got on homelessness was overwhelming, heartbreaking. But it was exciting when I got to the Palms because it was probably the best proof of concept of housing first and permanent supported housing, excuse me, that I think I've ever heard of. But then after the media went away, the politicians followed, and then one by one key staff members started leaving. Mm-hmm. And then the place turned into a ghost town, and that's kind of when the elements kind of creeped in. And then we started seeing less staff out and about the property. And right before COVID-19 hit, I talked to my case manager and said, things are getting pretty bad here. And his suggestion to me was move.
Jeez.
And that wasn't a solution for me. And so I summarily fired my case manager and asked for another one. But when COVID-19 hit, it got really bad to the point where it was the place was... So what happened with a perfect working model that could have been the model that paved the way for this county turned into a complete disaster. And now the Palms is filled with drug dealers, with prostitutes. The violence there is all night long, people yelling and screaming. You have couples in the parking lot fighting over the last hit of dope. At night, the last thing I hear before I fall asleep at night are drug deals being made outside of my door. There are people living at the Palms that aren't residents there, but they control the environment. From 10 o'clock at night till 6 in the morning, you can't even complain. You ask them if they would politely take their drugs to someplace other than in front of your door, and they'll talk shit back to you. And the thing that I'm having a hard time with is that one or two things has happened at the Palms. Either the staff is completely oblivious as to what's going on there, which means they're definitely unqualified to work there, or they know what's going on there, and they're not doing anything about it, which I think makes them liable for criminal negligence. The services that were promised have never materialized. And I couldn't tell you if Housing First works because we haven't seen it in the city. We've seen little glimpses of it here and there at the Palms, but what you have at the Palms now is you have an indoor encampment because the people there are still living like they're homeless. And when you talk about Housing First, they talk about the wraparound services, and traditionally people are thinking, mental health, job preparedness, things like this. But there's services that people need before they can even access those services. And so there's a thing I call the anatomy of chronic homelessness. And it's different than an episode homelessness. And if you'll indulge me for a second, I'll try and give you the Reader's Digest version. You end up homeless, and it doesn't matter how you ended up homeless. The fact is you're homeless. So trying to place blame on your boss or whatever, the community placing blame on you and drugs, it's not relevant at that point. What's relevant is I need some place to eat, I need some place to get some water, I need some place to sleep. And you're out on the streets, and the value system that the average person lives by, the shared value system, things like kindness, generosity, honesty, truth, they get abandoned faster than they can be compromised because you have to adopt a value system that's conducive to keeping you alive on the streets. So the value system that most of you live by will turn you into a victim out there. So things like honesty becomes deception. Things like peaceful resolution turns into violence. Trusting people turns into suspicion. And these things are ingrained in you. And you're going through this process, but while you're going through this process, you're focused on what? Food, water, someplace to sleep. And you live in a sense of hypervigilance, and you don't even realize that this change is going on inside of you. And so what you thought would be an episode of about 2 or 3 months turns into 2 or 3 years, turns into 10 years, turns into, oh my God, 15 years is gone, and I don't know where the time went. And then along comes a group of well-intended people that say, hey, we want to help you. And we want to give you a place to stay, and we want to give you a key, and we want to give you some clean sheets and some clean clothes, and we're going to give you a case manager, and we're going to give you a little bit of structure, and give you some rules to follow. And you enter into this place, and this is the polar opposite of what you've been living. But there's an expectation that because there's a roof over your head, that suddenly that switch is going to flip, and you're going to go back to normal. And what happens is you find yourself struggling with the structure and the rules. And so you get verbal warnings. And the verbal warnings turn into written write-ups. And then the next thing you know, your case manager is threatening to take away the very thing they just gave your housing. And they use that as leverage to get you to conform to their model. And it's not something you can do because it goes against every value that you've been living by. And now you have a reason to hang on to that value system because they just told you you're going back out to the streets. And sure enough, the majority of the people end up back out on the streets, and what's been happening is that they go back out on the streets and they're deemed program failures, and that they're resistant to services. And Catholic Charities that's received the lion's share of the money for Housing First and permanent supportive housing has never been held responsible for their role in that failure. This is a partnership, and it should be a sacred partnership. Now, when we're doing well, they have no problem parading us around in the community saying, look at the good we're doing. When we bomb out of treatment, they cut us loose. Usually the support goes with it. Any kind of program that we had goes with it. We have no more support, which has always been a bone of contention with me because I don't know of any human services philosophy that says when somebody's at their very worst, let's withdraw services rather than increase them. The Palms has been open for almost 8 years now. And it opened right around the time that Governor Newsom signed, I think it was Assembly Bill 1380, that made it mandatory that everyone that was helping the homeless adopt a housing first philosophy. And they received funding for it, and we've yet to see it at the Palms. And I say this because more than half the population has been evicted. Housing First doesn't advocate for eviction. Permanent supportive housing, the permanent part in front kind of implies that it's going to be there always. But you have an organization that's receiving money to house people, then they're evicting people. And I promise you, without looking at any of their case notes, they didn't find every means possible to keep that person in housing. What usually happens is they give them a warning, they give them another warning, then they give them a write-up, and then another write-up. And as soon as they've garnered enough write-ups to justify evicting them, they evict them. But you can't measure, the way to decide an eviction based on, how many write-ups they got, how many times they've been told, you need to take care of this. And that's what they'll tell you. They say, how come he got evicted? Well, we gave him 6 chances. But a chance without the tools to take advantage of it is a form of cruelty. And what's been happening is that nobody has received the things that were promised, the tools that they said they were going to get to maintain their housing, because if they did, they wouldn't be evicted. So it's not like kind of reaching and kind of like trying to pull things in that aren't there. If they're being evicted, it's because they weren't given the help they needed. And I want to know where the money went. There's no money for programming. You don't see the case managers at all. Well, that's not true. In the last 3 weeks since the Press Democrat has run the stories about the Palms, every Monday and Tuesday the case managers are all there in this big meeting, and we still don't see them out on the premises. And I can't figure out what good it is to do these in-service meetings if you're not going to take them to your clients. And the case managers there are so disconnected from their clients that they don't even know that a lot of their clients are living in squalor and filth. These are people that are dealing with hoarding issues that haven't received the help to get past them. So, although Akash Kalia has a responsibility to maintain the property, a lot of that falls back on the case managers who never got their clients the help they needed to learn the basic things like hygiene, like daily living skills. If you don't know how to do those, you're going to get things like cockroaches, you're going to get things like mold. And you can't put that on just property management. And I don't say this in a disparaging way, but a lot of these people, they need to be retaught how to live. People assume that everyone knows how to brush their teeth, everyone knows how to wipe up a spill. When you've been living in a tent for 10, 12 years, surrounded by garbage, things like wiping something up doesn't occur to you. Maybe stepping over it does, but wiping it up, no. And so that expectation is placed on them, but they're never given what they need to actually follow through with those things. And too many people have had those needs neglected. And I talk about neglect, and it's one of those things where I'm very careful about how I talk about it because of liability. But I don't think I have to worry about it here. The case managers are so out of touch with their clients that they don't even know when they die. And that's a problem. The Buzzards knew that one of the clients was dead before the staff did. And another one, she was a good friend of mine. Both of these people that were found in their rooms, they had been there. One was there for 7 days, another one was there for almost 3 weeks. Both of them had chronic illnesses. And that the gentleman that died 2 years ago, he was in stage 4 liver cancer, which says that for 3 weeks, a man with a chronic disease that was killing him in late stages was never checked on for 3 weeks. And I don't know how you get money to take care of people and let that happen. Kat was the other victim. in her room for 3 weeks dying, and a friend of hers went to check on her. Had she not checked on her that day, the doctor said she wouldn't have lasted 24 hours. Again, her case manager did not check on her for 3 weeks. When she got back from the hospital, her case manager did not check on her once. And they found her about a week later after she got back from the hospital. No one saw her for a week, and then her neighbor, noticed an odor coming from the room and asked the person at the front desk if he would do a welfare check, and he refused to do it. He said that I'll leave a note in the log for the staff, and they can do it tomorrow. And it's a good thing that this gentleman insisted, and he called the paramedics himself, or else she would have been in that room for another day or two. And her body was so badly decomposed, and the gentleman said that they had to get a hazmat team to go in there and clean it up. And the sad thing is that, no one goes to the Palms on a winning streak. We're all pretty broken when we get there. And a lot of people there are hopeless, and they think that's probably as good as it's going to get for them. Mm-hmm. But the problem is you don't expect much. And when you don't expect much, you'll take anything that's given to you. You'll take rotting bodies in the room next door to you. You'll take drug dealers selling out of your parking lot. You'll accept all that stuff because nothing else. Most of the people there that I talked to, I'm the sole writer of this grievance. But the grievance is a collection of stories I've heard from other people and had to have them substantiated for me and lead me to other people that could verify them. These are not just my sentiments. These are the sentiments of the majority of the people that live there that are afraid to say anything because they're afraid of losing their housing. So they'll live in substandard conditions and they'll be okay with it. And most of us have lived in those very narrow margins of lives, but it doesn't mean that our lives should be marginalized, and they are. And one of the things that I'm hoping is that enough of this story will get out, that people will start holding Catholic charities accountable. When I say accountable, I'm not talking about, the misappropriation of funds and going to prison. If that happens, let the chips fall where they may. When I say responsible, they have an obligation to their clients to provide the services that they said they were going to provide. And one of them is to keep us safe. And they're putting it on property management. Property management is putting it back on them. The bottom line is they're both responsible. They're responsible for our safety. Their own staff doesn't feel safe going out at night. Their own staff gets to go home at night. We got senior citizens living in there. They're afraid to come out of their units at night. We have senior citizens living in squalor and filth because they're hoarders and they don't know how to control it and they haven't got the help to control it. You have people that aren't senior citizens that are dealing with the same problems. And as far as I can tell, by the definition of the law, that's elder abuse. To let these people live in squalor and filth and not provide them with the help. And if you're under 65, it's reckless endangerment as far as I'm concerned. It's a health hazard to the community, and they do nothing about it. And I've been trying to raise awareness to this for years, and it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. And then when the stories came out in the Press Democrat, it seemed like a good time to get this thing together and kind of roll with that and see what can happen. The thing that really concerns me is the stuff that happens at night. And one of the other things that I'm hoping that will come out of this is I'm hoping Adrian Lobby will help me out in finding a way to get this done. When Dignity Village started up in Oregon, the way they provided safety for the residents was a community. They had members of the community acting as sentries. And they weren't getting in there and tackling people, but just their presence alone was discouraging people from coming on the property there and doing their misdeeds. And it's at that point now where we need that kind of help. Because we're not getting it from Catholic Charities, we're not getting it from Kosh. We were promised that the gate would be put up in March, and it's June now. And I just, my fear is that it's going to take a senior citizen getting robbed or getting hurt before they finally act. And I don't want to see that. My other fear is that the services are disappearing I think those, I shouldn't even say this, but that's what I feel. When Jenny Lynn Holmes was doing the tours of the Palms Inn in the beginning, I almost think the investors were the big building they're building over on Morgan Street. I don't think it was for us. And the place is like a ghost town. There's hardly any case managers there, and I think everybody's getting ready to make this move over here, and I'm wondering what's going to happen to us. Because if they just leave it to Akash and his one case property manager, it's going to turn into another welfare hotel in any urban area, and eventually they'll close it down. And the way they're gentrifying this whole area along Santa Rosa Avenue with the new apartments, they're not going to stand for a place like the Palms, not the way it is now. I wouldn't. And we'll be displaced again. And when we get displaced again, it'll be us that are made to carry that failure. And at some point, Catholic Charities need to step up and say, you know what, we bit off more than we can chew, and we need some help with this. But their unwillingness to admit that they even need help is costing us. I just need them to do what they said they would do. Yeah, I had a lot more to say, but I can't get into this thing. It's probably better that way because I hate when I get emotional. The one last thing that I wanted to bring up was with Catholic Charities, a lot of people have a hard time wrapping their head around this because their mind immediately rejects the idea. But this is an organization that, in my opinion, contributes as much to homelessness as they do in reducing homelessness. Because we see people go in and we see them come out. We see them go in and we see them come out. And as a business model, it's brilliant. It's sick, but it's brilliant. But if you can create your own client base and keep them in this revolving door, it's yourself a hell of a business. Now, I don't think they sit down and plot this. I think it's something that just was an unintended consequence and they had no solution for it, or maybe it just got past them. But in my opinion, they are the largest contributor to chronic homelessness than anything else in this community. They burn their clients. When I was working for them, I was instructed to burn several clients. It creates mistrust in the homeless community. And if the homeless community doesn't trust you, then as far as I'm concerned, the services they're not signing up for, it's because of you, and that really means you're contributing to the homelessness. And I really think that needs to be taken a look at, because I can't help but wonder if you take all the successes that they've been posting for all the people they've housed, but you subtract all the people that they've evicted, how successful would that program look? And would you continue to give money to it? The City Council is really big on throwing the word evidence-based out there. Everything we do is evidence-based, except with Catholic Charities. They aren't required to produce any results. They're not required to show their financials. And I thought that when you were a nonprofit, you had to show your financials. But apparently they don't. And I want to know where the money went. Because it certainly didn't come to programs. And with as much money as they've been getting, it baffles me that there is no oversight committee. And it baffles me that Gavin Newsom is giving all this money to all these counties with absolutely no oversight or obligation to produce any results. And what I'm afraid is going to happen is when the money runs out, they're going to deem the programs all failures. But we've lost millions and millions of dollars that could have gone towards building tiny homes, building tiny home villages. And we could have housed all these people with the money that they're not holding people accountable for. And I sometimes wonder how much City Council knows and just turns a blind eye to because it's ugly. And some of them might have to be held accountable. And that's when it just gets too much for me because politics get ugly, and Susan's been driving me crazy with politics, and it's ugly. And the thing is that there shouldn't be politics involved in like human services. I don't get that. I'm done.
Thank you very, very much, Ronnie. Before we let the reporters go at it, I want to mention a couple of things from the paper that you wrote that you didn't quite touch on. here, which I think are important. You talk about when Palms was first set up. It was thriving, it was bustling, hustling, bustling, all kinds of people running around and doing things and volunteering. A continental breakfast was available daily in the library and at least once a week, sometimes twice. Volunteers would come and prepare a hot breakfast for the residents. There were regular activity groups, AA, NA, classes, workshops residents could attend. We had a library, a TV room that was open from 9 to 9 with Wi-Fi, an amazing selection of books and DVDs that residents could check out for free. There were barbecues and special events. But most important, we had a sense of community. All those things fell away. Then with the absence of staff and volunteers out and about on the premises, dark elements began creeping in. I don't think people realize how dire the situation has become here, or the extent to which the chaos has grown. Fentanyl, meth, and stolen property are easily procured. There is now continuous foot traffic at all hours of the day and night. From 10 at night until dawn, trespassers control the environment here at the Palms. There are arguments down the parking lot, boyfriends and girlfriends fighting over the last bit of dope, and a growing presence of gang members who recently attacked the building. Theft and prostitution are also running rampant. Fear and intimidation systematically silence people. Catholic Charity staff members openly admit they don't feel safe here after dark.
They're actually running the biggest trap house in the county. It's just, again, it's hard to wrap your head around. An organization that's charged with housing people is running a trap house. And in my estimation, just based on the people I've talked to, because I'm an old convict, people talk to me about like a wide range of things. There's at least a pound of meth being sold out of that facility a week. We've had 4 fentanyl overdoses. They haven't even bothered to go door to door with brochures and pamphlets, and even making Narcan available. They haven't even done that much. And there's a fentanyl epidemic in this country, and it's been overshadowed by the COVID thing. And people don't realize how severe it is. We have, once used to be shooting galleries, and now smoking galleries that we have up in the Palms. You have rooms that are dedicated to just getting high on fentanyl. And at the very least, they should be doing some harm reduction there. Like I said, going door to door and telling people the hazards, and if they want to get clean, this is how you do it. And if you insist on doing this, then this is the safest way to do it. I don't advocate for drug use. I do advocate that if somebody's going to do it, let's teach them how to do it safely. They don't even do that much.
Here's a little bit more. There was a time when a resident could call the front desk to report an intruder or other suspicious activities, and staff would respond immediately. We are now directed to call the security company instead. If the security company avails little help to remedy the situation, a 2-minute drive through the parking lot once an hour is virtually useless. Personnel rarely, if ever, get out of their vehicles and walk the premises. And when they do drive by, trespassers don't say a word to them. They just hide, waiting for them to pass. Somehow hang out on the second floor landing of the middle stairwell, where they continually break, steal, or untwist the light bulbs to keep it perpetually dark. On more than one occasion, staff has watched me get into near scuffles with my baseball bat, trying to get trespassers off the property. They offered absolutely no support or assistance whatsoever. When it comes to some of the gruesome stories at the end of this paper, it is inconceivable to me that people could have been treated this way. The sick who were dying in their rooms unattended, without care, without being checked, It is horrifying. I'm trying to find one particularly difficult passage.
The one about Susan bothers me the most.
Where's Susan?
Yeah, she was permanent schizophrenic, and she was placed in the Palms. I was still working with hosts at the time, and I advocated against it. Not that I didn't want her house, it's the Palms doesn't have the type of program she needed. So if they were insistent on putting her in the Palms, what they needed to do was contract with an RN to administer her medication to her every day, because Susan's not med compliant. And she can do it for about a day or two, and then when she feels good, she stops taking her meds. And then she goes through this schizophrenic break, and she can run around for up to 2 or 3 days without sleeping, just screaming at the top of her lungs, back and forth, back and forth. And the first couple times staff intervened and realized that they didn't know what to do. So they sent her to psych services, and psych services straightened her out with the medication. They put her back and found herself in the same situation. And again, I think any reasonable service provider would have contracted with an RN. They also would have contracted with someone like Buckaloo, so that Susan would have a day program to go to if she chose to, something to engage her in. She would have had access to food to bring it back to her place. She would have had a larger support system when she had those psychotic episodes, rather than just left to walk back and forth by herself. It got to a point where staff just ignored her. It wasn't fair to the residents. It certainly wasn't fair to Susan. And when they had enough of her, they sent her to psych services to get her meds straightened out, and evicted her while she was in psych services. They also evicted a widow the night that her partner died, locked her out, because her name wasn't on the lease, even though before her partner died, he asked his case manager if she would put her on the leash, on the lease. And after he passed, she said that she wasn't able to connect with him to do that in time. Well, it wouldn't have been too hard, because he'd just come back from the hospital after having his foot amputated. He wasn't going anywhere. All she had to do was walk up a flight of stairs. And instead, it wasn't 10 minutes after he passed that they locked the door and put the padlock on it. It took her 2 weeks to get back in there. What kind of person, let alone an organization, does that to a widow?
And here's another one that might be even harder to hear. Kat Zaganoff is one of many examples. Approximately 2 weeks prior to her death, she'd been released from the hospital after a 15-day stay. A Palms neighbor discovered that Kat had been released and had been bedridden for almost 3 weeks. Gaunt and emaciated, she had lost 50 pounds and was found lying in urine-soiled sheets with feces dried to her body like chunks of cement. The smell was so foul the neighbor could not bear to enter the room. She immediately called the paramedics and informed staff that Kat was being taken to the hospital. Several days after she was admitted, Kat called her neighbor and thanked her for saving her life. Her doctor said without that intervention, she would have been dead within 24 hours. Kalani alluded to that already. Here's the rest of the story. Exacerbated by chronic substance abuse and alcoholism, Kat's failing health was not a secret to anyone. With 3 clogged heart valves, she rarely left her apartment, as negotiating the second floor stairs was a Herculean task, often too difficult for her to undertake. Given the state of her failing health, any reasonable service provider would have checked on her regularly. It seems inconceivable that Kat's case manager was completely unaware that her client had been upstairs in her room, slowly dying for 3 weeks. Yet that is the truth. In both instances, no checks were ever done on her, not even in death with the smelling of rotting corpse coming from her room was a welfare check even done once by any of the Palms staff. It would be unfair to speculate whether the cat would be still alive if regular checks had been conducted. What I do know is this. Due to the weakened state Kat was in when she returned from the hospital, daily welfare checks should have been done when she returned until she regained her strength and was able to call for help on her own if she needed to. Had those checks been done, the last memory of my friend may not be that of a blackened corpse melting down the wall into a gelatinous pool of blood and bodily fluids surrounded by maggots.
You know, the irony is that each person at the Palms is there because, according to the VI Scadat, we're the most vulnerable in the community. And they've got this phone out there in the middle of everything that they sought to protect us from. Yeah, I'm a pretty sharp guy, but I can't wrap my head around that. And more will follow if something isn't done. Most of us out there have serious health issues just because the way we're living on the streets, you know. Years of drug abuse. You know, we're not healthy people. Even after what happened with Kat, you would think that they would start paying a little closer attention to their senior citizens that have health issues, and they're not going out there daily and checking on them. I talked to the new property manager the day before yesterday, and I'm going to see about getting a volunteer program of some of the younger, healthier people partnering up with some of the older people. I mean, just to make sure they're alive every day. We certainly can't rely on Catholic Charity staff to, like, know when someone passes away. Again, I mean, that's a problem. It's a problem that's not getting the attention that it deserves. And sometimes I think, out of sight, out of mind. Sometimes I think they wish that we would all just die away quickly. Because even out there, we may not be scattered on the streets, but we're still a stain on the fabric of the community.
I'd like to add one more thing, and that is what I consider to be the inexcusable negligence on the part of law enforcement. We've got this nightly bacchannal going on with drugs and prostitution and thievery. You name it, it's a big party every night at the Palms. Where is law enforcement? They know this is going on. They have turned a blind eye to this mess for years. They are derelict in their duty, and I demand that they clean up this mess right away.